This is Brian with the Barbell Spin, and I'm joined by Jared Graybeal, founder and guy that runs everything with the Zelos Games. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing great. Have you recovered yet? 72 hours since your wild weekend.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Actually, there was an after party, and I rarely party these days, and I did, uh, I engaged in all the partying, and it was at the Marquee nightclub at the Cosmopolitan here in Las
Yeah.
Vegas, and uh, the buddy of mine hooked us up with a table and a couple bottles, and so inevitably it was a good time. I never drink like that. I feel like my kidneys still hurt and it's Wednesday. So but no, I mean, even that aside, I was chatting with Dakota today, my competition director, and we were both like, just a little bit of adrenal fatigue and even just like mental fatigue. It's interesting, like not that I have a ton of experience in running CrossFit events, but it's interesting to I have a ton of experience working at CrossFit events. And so like it's interesting how tired you can be, but it's weird to complain about it because you're like, well, the competitors clearly physically did far more work, but
Right.
like mentally, this is such a relief to be done on one end, but it's also like, you're on such a high all weekend, well, especially because it went really well. And so then you sort of come down. It's like that, I don't know, like a post honeymoon phase where you're like, what next? You're like, um,
That's
so
how I felt covering the CrossFit Games in 2019 and being there. I mean, you're just running on adrenaline for all those days, and then multiple days, and then you realize on Sunday that, oh man, we got one more event and this thing's over.
yeah, yeah. It's like, I mean, I don't even know. It's like having a bunch of kids and doing Christmas and then being done and being like, what do I do now? So, but no, I mean, I feel fine. Just a little out of it, taking it a little slower to get back into my groove, but um, super stoked on how things went.
Yeah, you mentioned that you hadn't really run a CrossFit competition before, worked at them. That was one of my questions: is what did you learn going into this that you had no idea what it would take to put on a live showcase?
Man, I learned a ton. Just because like there's so much, because it's like I've never hosted a CrossFit competition in general, let alone an elite level competition that's on a live broadcast, right? Because if you don't have a live broadcast, you can get away with some stuff and nobody really
Hmm.
knows.
Right.
People are generally like goldfish; they forget stuff the next day. But you put it on a live broadcast, it takes a little bit longer for the community to forget about it. But I learned, it'd be too long to tell you everything I learned because I learned everything that it takes to put on a competition. But I will say this: I didn't learn it from intuition alone. I'll say I'm a relatively good organizer and business person and communicator, but I had a lot of help. One from Brian Friend, because Brian Friend has a ton of just experience being a part of competitions. I mean, like he's never hosted. Well, no, I take that back. He's hosted ones at his
This.
local gym
Yeah,
himself.
yeah.
Um, but he's just been a part of so many competitions that when I began to put this on, I'm like, hey Brian, let's jump on a call. I know this isn't your job to tell me like what to do, but this is my plan. If you want to give me your feedback, and if you know Brian, he's really good at giving feedback, whether people like it or not. And so, but I do like it. So like he
Yeah.
gave me a lot of feedback behind the scenes. Dylan Malitsky's a buddy of mine, and he runs. He's a part of running Wadapalooza, and he works at Loud and Live, and he's got a ridiculous amount of experience doing things like this. And he was the same. He's like, Jared, do you want to jump on a call and tell me your plan? I'm like, I would love it if you gave me your time. And so he gave me a lot of his time, and he tweaked a lot of my plans, and he offered suggestions. He connected me with, Signs RX, which like the whole venue was, built out by Signs RX. Like obviously,
Hmm.
that stuff comes at a cost, but
Yeah.
I had a lot of help. I would say primarily by Dylan, a lot by Brian, and then little bits and pieces here and there, and then I just execute. If I'm good at anything, it's executing on a plan. So
Yeah. How big was your team that you utilized, and what were some of the main players that were involved in getting this thing going? Obviously, you mentioned Brian Friend. We all know Hiller was part of the judging.
Yeah.
Who
We had
else was in
30.
there behind the scenes that was critical
Yeah.
of this?
If my numbers are right, we had about 40 people on the team, 34 of which were volunteers. About out of the 40, I think 11 of them had experience working CrossFit events. And of those 11, it's like Brian was my live analyst. Souza was the guy, running around with one of the cameras.
Right.
Ella was the MC. Jason Dahl was our DJ. Like these people have experience. A couple of our judges had experience, like two. And as far as everybody else, like athlete control, one of our athlete control people had experience. One of our equipment team had experience. They both had been on teams at Wadapalooza Road, CrossFit. So we had 40 total. About 11 had experience, 29 did not. And how I went about that, man, again, it was just like, all right, I was like, I'm going to host this competition. Then I'll figure it out from there. And so, told the gym owners at Camp Rhino, which are friends of mine at this point, we've developed a relationship over time, and they're like, hey, this person's interested in volunteering. And, Dakota, my competition director is one of the head coaches at the gym. He's also one of the athletes that trains with us every day. And he knows some people obviously in the community. I put on Instagram who wants to volunteer. So I had a bunch of people, had 50, 60 people reach out. And then I sort of kind of had the opportunity to almost hand pick. And like, I knew probably out of the 40 people, I probably knew 25 of them. And so I knew, I'm like, I like this gal for athlete control. I like this gal for judging. I like this guy for equipment. I like this, young adult for equipment. And so I sort of moved people around. We had a few shifts midway through. But I knew what I needed. And that's really, again, back to like Brian and Dylan. I just asked, like, what do I need on athlete control? 4? Cool. I'll get it. I need 8 judges. And then, of course, I've got Hiller as head judge. And so I know you asked a little bit about the team, but we had Andrew Hiller as the head judge, Savon running the broadcast from his home. I believe Taylor Midself. I think you came on there.
I was on there a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah. Chase was on there a minute. I haven't had the opportunity to watch it all, but I've been like skimming through it. J.R. Howell was on there. Of course, Brian, I would say, was like the lead commentator, analyst for it all. Again, Bella was our MC. Jason was our DJ, J Dahl. And then, we had 8 judges. A few of them are buddies of mine from Florida, from Tennessee, that were like, we want to help. We'll come out. And I'm like, dope. And so, and then, just put together a team. And then, I have a lot of experience running teams, running companies, right? So I just looked at it the same way. And so we had weekly calls for about an hour, and each call had a clear agenda, and we reviewed the agenda. And over time, like in the very beginning, I was like leading all these, because for the most part, like Andrew had not been a head judge before. A few of our team leaders had not led teams and events before. A few of them had, but I wanted to get all the stuff on my end out of the way. And then we sort of segued over time to them leading the team meetings, and me sort of just taking notes, making sure that everyone was accounted for, making sure that we're communicating the meeting times to people. So it was ran like a business. And luckily everyone was committed, because it's really hard. Like I have a lot of experience in the church, and volunteering in the church, running teams, or being like team lead for different, like whether it's the people that greet you at the front, and so these are all volunteers. And so it can be challenging even in a church where people are doing this for God, let alone like for CrossFit, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And so, I say all that to say we got really lucky, because like 95% of all of our volunteers were very committed, always on the calls, or at least watching the call recaps, and they came prepared and they executed extremely well. It was, if you see a lot of pictures from me from the weekend, I'm smiling. And if you look at pictures from me running different companies over the past 12 years, I'm not always smiling. So like, it was a pleasure. It was a refreshing experience.
Yeah. This you call it a hybrid model, doing really, it's the crux of it is an online competition. But you definitely added a lot of complexity of adding this live showcase. How much did this live showcase take, as compared to what you did last year and this year of running the online piece of it? I assume it's a lot more that went into it.
Yeah, last year I was really a one-man team, literally. Like, everything that people saw last year. Of course, I had a graphic designer that I contracted out for all the graphics and things like that. contracted a videographer out to do some of the live throwdowns that we did. And then, of course, a lot of athletes and influencers promoted the event. But that's just me touching point with a bunch of people and paying them for different services. And you know what I mean?
Right.
This year was, again, up to 40 people executing in different roles. So if I were to give you a number, I would say this year was 20 times as hard as last year. So it was hard. Like, you know, it's funny because not only myself, but people like Andrew, and all the volunteers, again, except for maybe Bella, Brian, and Jay Dahl, who have done this over and over again.
Mhm.
Like, we gain a ton of empathy for, like, man, it is very hard to put on a quality event. That doesn't necessarily excuse some of the stuff that we see in the community, athletes not getting paid and stuff like that. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's fucking hard to put on a good event. It's hard to perfect the art of judging. Like, of course, I wasn't the head judge, but I was very involved. I mean, I was very, very, very involved in the processes of prepping our judges, reviewing standards, going through practice rounds, reviewing videos prior to the event so we know what we're looking for as a good rep and what's a bad rep. And then when it all comes out on the floor, like, it's like we executed well, but we didn't perfectly execute. Like, even on the floor, I can recall instances where I'm like, he missed that wall ball. Wow, this you. And I can't speak for Andrew, but I would probably say that he can echo some of that sentiment. That it's like execution is, it's hard, but you got to be prepared. I think we did a pretty good job. It doesn't excuse a lot of the stuff that we see in the community, but a lot of respect for people that put on really, really good events. A lot of respect for people that put on events in general, but more specifically for people that put on the events that are well executed, repeated, and yeah, man, it was hard.
Yeah, I mean, you think about just judging, and you have 12 people. They're all going to see things just a little bit different, whether it's how they move or they watch others move in their gyms. The athletes are moving probably faster than they've seen before. And how tight do you hold those standards versus give somebody a little bit of a leeway? And all it takes is person on one end of the spectrum is being super critical, and one kind of gives somebody away and lets them get away with a movement. Next thing you know, you see things like at Rogue where the one judge was giving out no reps. And it shines negatively on what actually happened overall. And so to be able to do that, I didn't see anything that was that noticeable while watching all weekend long, which is a good thing.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm a not in all areas of my life, but in business, I aim to be a perfectionist, and so, like, there's very little that I don't see, and so but there's an interesting nuance to this style of business because, like, normally in the past, the companies that I've always ran, I would say, are relatively traditional. Like, week after week, you're repeating these processes. Where in the in the event industry or in the competition industry, like, we don't really get to. We have a year to repeat this, right? And so, like, it's not that right after this ends, I get to meet with the team and be like, hey, next week, let's X, Y, Z. It's more or less now I got to take a bunch of notes. If I get the same volunteers next year or the same team next year, then they'll know what I'm talking about. So it's kind of interesting where in the past, running teams and companies, it's like the following Monday meeting, I get to say, hey, last week executed really, really well. However, A, B, C, D. So it's almost irrelevant. Some of the, like, we're not going to, like, when I see the wall ball stuff, not stuff there, I can, like, recall one rep of a wall ball where I'm like, and I just, in my soul, I'm like, dang, but I don't get to say, hey, tomorrow, because we're not doing that tomorrow. Right. So, and that's, as a sport, and this is going down a rabbit hole. As a sport, I think that's why CrossFit is such an incredible thing, but also a difficult sport to grow because it's constantly varied. And then, of course, there's the conversation about unknown and unknowable, but I think that is a little different. But, like, constantly varied is like, referees on the field of play in an NFL game, they see the same thing over and over and over again.
Yep.
And the CrossFit competitions, if we just see the same thing over and over and over again, it's going to get boring because you can't have the same workouts every time, every year, whatever. So it's, it's just so interesting. And I enjoy
how often does somebody become a judge in a year?
Yeah,
even the best are doing it a couple competitions, and these volunteers at most of them once or twice, maybe 3 times. It's
Exactly.
not
And
week in, week out.
you have, of course, again, this is like there's so many rabbit holes we can go down, but you have the fact that many judges are volunteers. Not all, not like some organizations do pay their judges, and those organizations deserve credit. Um, I don't. I know behind the scenes that some pay. They've never said publicly that they do, and I don't know why. So I won't like name those companies, but or competitions. But anyways, so it's like, but what I'm getting at is that some competitions have different head judges that might have nuanced different standards. Not, I mean, like a
Mhm.
wall ball is a wall ball, a thruster is a thruster, but at the severity at which they define a no rep could be slightly different.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, if you have the volunteer, and I'm just making examples of these aren't these aren't you know true, but like let's say you do Rogue and you do Wadapalooza and you do the Zelos games, they all have three different head judges. Those head judges might have slightly different beliefs around
What to
how
look
far you
for.
need to
Yeah.
extend the thruster, and so it's like it's hard to replicate over and over. But again, in the NFL, if you go to ref at a New York Jets game, and then you go to ref at a Patriots game, it's the same. It's the same. It should
Hmm.
be,
Yeah.
and so you know, it's complicated. It's difficult, and I think, man, I think they deserve more credit.
Yeah.
I can't wait to the day that we can grow the economy side of CrossFit enough to where everyone's getting paid because there are no referees in NFL that are volunteering. That's for sure.
That's true. Kenneth DeLapp, thanks for joining. The more handsome American Ricky Garrard. That's
I don't know about that,
quite,
man. Yeah,
quite the compliment.
yeah. Well, I think he might be a guest on Savon as well, or he might be a commenter on Savon.
I'm pretty sure we've seen him there.
I have heard of that, but Ricky is my boy. I'm not. I don't know about more handsome, but he's an awesome guy. I wouldn't mind being in the same conversation as him. So
One of the questions I had for you, and it was brought up on the live stream with Savan, was workouts 1.1, 1.2. This being the second year, obviously, I noticed that it was like 0.1. What was your thought behind that?
yeah, I mean, it's really just kind of like the open, right? Like, but the open does year and like workout. So 20, this next year will be 23.1, 23.2. I wanted to go the route of, so obviously I'm copying them, so they deserve the credit for that. But
Yep.
I wanted to go the route of like inception. And last year was sort of a beta year. Now each year, of course, is a new style of test, and God willing, we get to repeat next year and do a new iteration, hopefully better and bigger.
Mhm.
But last year was like, I'm beta testing this idea. So it's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3.
Got it.
And so this year is like our first real year, in my opinion. And so 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. That's really where that comes from.
Yeah. When did you and Kiefer start thinking about the programming and putting those things down on paper?
Right after the games.
Okay.
Me and Kiefer have worked together since like early February with Underdogs Athletics, and I'm very familiar with his style of programming, and not that he like brought that style into this, because it's important to have a unique style going into a competition versus how you maybe coach for a certain camp, but also accessibility. Like we work together regularly. Last year was like a beta. I tried a lot of different unique things, and so we did this year, of course. But last year, like Mayhem programmed the first workout, the second workout. Well, more specifically, Jake and Rich programmed the first workout. The second workout was a open repeat, but with a slight change. And then the third workout was programmed by me and Justin Kotler from Underdogs Athletics. And so it was sort of like a collective, and I credited those program camps. But this year I didn't really want to do multiple camps. I also didn't want to be involved directly with one particular camp and have it seem like it was biased, because we're already hosting it in Vegas. Some Underdogs athletes are already, and plus Justin's busy. And so, basically the way that the programming worked this year was, I gave Kiefer an outline, like a very clear outline. He filled in the blanks, right? So, and he did a great job of filling in the blanks. But I basically said, I want 4 tests. One barbell sprint, like classic CrossFit barbell sprint, one interval style workout, one long chipper, and then one like max weightlifting workout was my original, max weight. And then he offered the fact that if we do 4 workouts and one of them's a max lift only, it's 25%, and that might be a bit biased towards weightlifters. And so he added a fitness element to it. Ironically, everyone seems to be PRing on this workout, so it's apparently the perfect warm up to your max snatch. So yeah, and I said, I want dumbbells, I want barbells, I want an echo bike, I want a rower, and he sort of took those things and he built what you guys got to see from that.
Yeah, I think we counted 6 women set a PR. I don't know how many on the men's side, at least 1 or 2, I think.
Yeah, live. I mean, it might be more. I know Sola. I know Brittany Weiss. I know Alex Kazan. I know Elia. I know Christine Kohlenbrander.
Alexis was within like 2 pounds coming off.
Yeah, a couple of them
injury
matched. A couple of them matched their lift. So at least I guess I know 5.
Yeah, I think Brian Friend on there said he knew 1 more. Which if anybody's gonna know, it's gonna be him.
Yeah,
for sure.
Brian PR'd his. Kiefer PR'd his. Another girl that trains with us, Carson Wolf, one of the athletes that trains with Kiefer, she PR'd hers. I mean, I'm getting tagged on Instagram like multiple times a day with people PRing their snatch. So seems to be quite a theme. I wanted to do it today. I just went into the gym and I did not have still the adrenal fatigue. I'm not going to try to do the snatch workout today.
Yeah. Was there one workout in particular that you were really excited to see done live?
Yeah, well, yeah, the second one, because it's like this pain cave sprint, and I was interested in how fast the fastest person is going to go. But it's hard to say. I mean, like, and Pete Mason crushed it. I think he got the best time of male and female at 3:59. But the first one is technically my favorite workout because I love interval style workouts. It's easy to score it. And I love ring muscle ups. But the third one ended up being, I would say, the most exciting to watch. Maybe, I mean, they all have like their own thing. Like, and we strategically put the 4th workout as the last workout because it's the only one with a race to the finish on your hands. Because there's, this is a unique live competition where they're debuting online style programming, and so when they're done, they're done. They don't have to run to the finish, except if there's a handstand walk. So that's really a non-answer. But I guess I was looking most forward to the second one because it's you already know like a workout like that's going to be exciting. But the third one ended up being the coolest just because of how happy people are when they PR a snatch, or really anything. And I would say I'm like, to be transparent, I was a little worried because we were testing the Z score in this live competition, and I knew going into it that there might be some discrepancies or some marginal differences in people's snatches, and so I was like, oh man, this might not look good on me, honestly. Like, or it might not look good on the Z score because if everyone knows Tola has a massive snatch, everyone knows Christine Kohlenbrander has a massive snatch, and they're both relatively highly elite fitness. And so I was like, oh, are they just going to run away with it? And then it messes up Z score for Tyler Watkins. Or at least the image of that. Right. And so, Tudor sort of saved the day. Elia, like Roe, Sola, like 200. I think Roe got around 200, 202 maybe. Elia getting 215. Christine getting 225, which is just mind blowing. Like, I think a year and a half ago, my PR max snatch was 225. And most of the guys I know still aren't doing that. Or at least most of the guys that at the RX level. But so yeah. Anyways, I don't know. I'm ranting.
No. I mean, I watched the pre-show going into 1.2, and on paper, it looks, oh man, they're just going to sprint through it. There's a question of can they go unbroken, and you see how devastating that thing was. That was a fun one to watch, and generally in all these competitions, the last workout is like it's got to be fast. It's got to be some quick sprint to make it exciting. But having a long workout at the end added some drama, especially when Tudor was struggling there on the wall balls and slowing down. Like, you had a lot of time to try to think about, is Tudor going to be able to hold off and finish fast enough to stay above Tola. It was kind of a unique finish compared to what you normally see of, you know, generally it's like 3 minutes, right? And it's done before you know it. You don't know who's won.
Yeah,
This, we
I
were
agree.
watching the seconds tick by, and it was crazy to watch. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean, in hindsight, it's like cool. It's like as if we knew that would happen, and I had an idea that it would. Because the thing about a long chipper, like for example, if you finish a competition with a sprint, um, for those of us that follow the sport closely, it's you can use like I knew Adler was going to win heavy DT. Um,
hmm
like I just knew it, right? I mean, you kind of have an eye like, oh, like anybody can take this, but like he is arguably the best at cycling a heavy barbell or just a heavy barbell in general. He's in the top five of that conversation, especially clean and jerks. Um, and Noah's a great sprinter, right? So if it's like a gymnastic sprint, Noah's probably going to run away with it. And so like a lot of times when it's a 3 to 5 minute workout, it's like I kind of have a pretty good idea of who's going to win this.
hmm
There's one strategy, and it's hold on until you fall apart. But with a long chipper, like there's so many different strategies. So it's like, and it being the last workout of the weekend or of the competition in general, it's
Yeah.
like, man, you can really mess this up.
Yeah.
Um, and so, you can go hot like on the first row, and then you could do an unbroken wall ball because it's only 35, and then your chest to bars are, it's like there's so many different ways to
hmm
attack it. The devil press woke people up. So yeah, I mean it was really fun because the people that won the first half of that, not like most of them didn't win the second half of it. The best handstand walkers didn't necessarily win the workout. And so it was like, I don't know, it was really cool. I think Kiefer did a really great job of making that last test a very balanced weightlifting,
hmm
monostructural, and gymnastic test. Even though on paper it looks like a predominantly gymnastic workout, the row was hard the second round. Devil presses were. A lot of people were like, "Why are you letting him clean and jerk?" We're like, "Wait till you see it live and see if people are not going to clean and jerk these dumbbells out of like
yeah.
desperation." So
Yeah, that
it
definitely
was,
slowed everybody down. It was at first it looked like, oh, it's just going to be in there, kind of, add another movement, kind of help with the up and down chipper, and they got to it. Man, that was a slugfest.
yeah. I mean, in some cases, it took like 2 minutes to do 10
Mhm.
devil press. So
It
it's
looked like me out there, but with less weight. Got some more. Bruce, thanks for joining. We got Travis from Vindicate. Thank you guys for joining. Um, how long did it take to set up the gym and get all that stuff set up and convert that?
like
Just Friday and getting all that set up, and
yeah, like 4 hours the night before.
yeah, that look. I mean, it looked great from there, and yeah, you would never know that was
I know
put
it's.
together that quickly.
I've got these like. Oh, I think I threw them all away. Maybe. Yeah, I did. I put them
All
in
of
this.
your, you go save them on your story. I think you're talking about the
Yeah.
drawings.
I don't know why I threw them away. I feel like that's kind of nostalgic to keep them,
You should have, yeah.
but I can always draw them again. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Mr. Wayne. Um, yeah, no, I mean, of course, I drew it up. I had a vision, and I've been an entrepreneur in like the real sense of the word, not like the buzz sense of the word, for 13, 14 years now. And so like I have tried a lot of different things in terms of business, and I've had visions for different things. And many times you have a vision and it comes to reality or fruition, and you're like, dang, this is not it. You know what I mean? Like you're like, or like, I paint, right? Those aren't mine. That one is over there. Anyways, those are actually Todd Okudo,
Okay,
level 3 CrossFit coach and
nice.
seminar staff. Anyways, he does paintings. If anybody ever wants to buy some Todd Okudo paintings, but no, like I painted it as a young kid, and I still do when I have time. It's like you have a vision, you paint it, you're like, damn, this was not it. You know what I mean? But this was so cool because like it's exactly to the T. I remember looking around when we finished it, and I'm like, wow, this is dope. Like even the vendors, like they fit perfectly. The bleacher, like just the athlete warm up area, the egress to outside with the white tents, the food trucks, everything was like, I'm like, in my mind, the food trucks will pull up right here. We'll have cornhole, we'll have the basketball court out back. And it worked, man. And it was like, dang, thank God. Because it could have not.
Did you have any?
Um,
Do you have any last minute adjustments or things that didn't come through the way you thought?
No, I mean, well, like, based on the size of the flooring, we actually thought we'd have to put the bleachers on the other side of that first rig, which wouldn't
Mhm.
be that ideal for people on that bleacher. It would still give them a view, but they'd have to be looking through the rig and they'd see the backside of the competitors. But as we laid the flooring, we were like, wow, we can actually put the rig in a much better spot, or the bleachers in a much better spot. So that was a benefit, like a
Mhm.
pivot that worked really well for us. Um, Other than that, man, I mean, no, like, it it just went so well. Like, we even had to, like, we had one media room for external media. We had another media room for internal media. Um, the gym was just perfect, and that's, I mean, I made I guess a joke, but I'm not really joking. But like, it would be dope if CrossFit allowed us to host an open workout because it's the perfect setting. And like, we proved that it
Yeah.
can be done on that
Yeah.
scale. Um, I don't know, wishful
Yeah.
thinking, but it's clear. Like, the gym's big enough, the lighting was fine. Anyways, it was dope.
Yeah. You mentioned on I think a recent post that you started looking into live streams and you got quoted $20,000 to $150,000. Uh, I imagine you quickly had that sinking feeling of how am I going to do this? And you kind of outlined how you worked with Brian and Savon
Yeah,
stepped in to help that. Um, can you kind of talk about how that came about and how you got
yeah,
it
man.
from, well, man, oh shit, I'm not gonna be able to get this to work to, wow, we pulled something off and it turned out great.
So last year, so last year we hosted a couple live throwdowns, and people liked them, and that's what that was sort of the seed of this idea, right? This is sort of the fruit of that idea. And the live throwdown was really cool. We did one in Las Vegas. My buddy Vinny, who's the I was media director, or like head media guy for Underdogs Athletics. He had like a couple camera angles, and we did the live like throwdown with Carrie, Bethany, and Danielle last year. I paid him, I think, like $1,200, $1,500 to do that. He brought a different camera guy out. It was cool. And so I thought, okay, I could probably get someone to do this for 5 to 10 grand, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not walking around money for me by any means. But I figured I could make that work in terms of like a live international broadcast for people to tune in. And so I got connected with a very large broadcast company that does some very large events, and super cool guys, amazing team. I didn't get a ballpark up front, so it was like, all right, here's all the
Yeah.
information. We had multiple calls, and eventually I got a quote. Like, I got like a
That's
very
when you know it's expensive when they don't mention the price at first.
yeah. I was like, he knows I'm not a rich person, and I'm putting this on myself. But I got the quote, and he's like, "Hey, man, we sort of did the bare minimum here, and it's 150." And I'm like, "Oh, oh God!" Like, he's like, "We need to bring up multiple trucks. We got to feed the guys for a week. We got to," and I'm like, "Oh wow!" Like, I don't know that I need all that, but is there a small version? He's like, "No, we don't really do a." They have an image to uphold, right?
Hmm.
So I completely understood that. Again, super cool team. Like, nothing against them. I'm only not naming them because I don't know if it's like public information, but then I got another smaller team, and I was like, "Hey, this is what my vision is." You know, like, same thing, but like a local out of Vegas. They do some smaller broadcast things, and I got like a $20,000 quote, and I was like, neither of these work for me personally. I
Hmm.
had no idea. I got to do something. And ironically, the guy from the $150,000 quote was like, "Why don't you?" He's like, "Jared, you're gonna have to scrap. Like, you're gonna have to do this scrappy. Why don't
Hmm.
you hit up Saban and see if he'd be interested in broad?" So it wasn't my idea. It was actually,
Okay.
a broadcast company's idea. Um, and so I was like, and I've been connected with Savan, but not well enough to just text him and be like, "Do you want to broadcast my event?" And so texted Brian, and I said, "What do you think about this idea?" And he's like, "I think he'd be interested in that." And we jumped on a call, and it was like, sort of that's all she wrote. Like,
Hmm.
he was like, "We did this in Dubai in a unique way. We did something like this at Wadapalooza a little bit." He's like, "Jared, this would be technically our first time legitimately doing this, but this is my vision. If it works, it could be revolutionary. We could do this, we could do that. We'd have iPhones. You need to get, we need to do some upload tests. So we had a couple calls, like me at the gym. We had to get an extra Wi-Fi just for this event. Test the upload speeds. Obviously, they tweaked that a little bit over the weekend, and it got better going into second, third, fourth event.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how that conversation went. And then he was like, we need people. So I had to find, of course, volunteers, found multiple volunteers, put them on that team. They had some calls to prep. I was on those calls. So that's how it all went. And then again, it was just one of those things where I'm just like trusting, but he was so confident, but he was honest. He's like, hey, this could not work at all. But if it does, I think we will crush it. I'm like, I trust you, man. I don't really have the capacity to do it myself or the money to spend on anybody else. So, thank you, Travis from Vindicate.
No, if obviously I was part of, jumping on Zavon's show a couple times and watching it, but I think from an outsider's perspective, obviously, all these events that happen and don't have a live stream, or they just have a camera up without any commentary, it leaves you kind of wanting more. And this had the commentary. It had, I don't think you would know that it was from iPhones, that were stationed across, and Sue's are running around trying to capture the best angles. But it definitely, it was great to watch, and I think Soccer Mom here be fun to see this format for more events.
Well, post on Instagram, tag CrossFit, and start a petition, because we'd love to do it. And now I know in about a week I'll be bored, so I need something else to work on.
Kenneth, let's see. Oh, that's not it. Here we go. Did you have a second of doubt? Like, do I really want to try to do this 2-day 4-event competition?
100%, man. Like, I'm such a risk taker, and it's frustrating because it's not always smart. But yeah, like, ebbs and flows over the past 3 months. I pray. I'm a Christian. I pray about every decision not every decision. I make a lot of dumb decisions, but a lot of the bigger decisions I make, I pray about for a long period of time. And I had 9 months to pray on this, right? Like the closing of last year's Zelos Games leading up to, I sort of gave myself an expiration date of like the day after CrossFit Games. If I'm going to do the Zelos Games, that's when I need to get to work, because you can't really work on it before, like vendors, sponsors, they're not really interested in talking until the games are over, athletes, things like that.
Right.
And so I prayed and I thought, and I built a plan and chatted with people and got feedback, and for a long time. And then, once you get started, it's like, well, I'm starting this thing. And then like you have a good day, you're cloud nine, you have a bad day, or maybe a sponsor backs out or tells you no, and athlete confirms and then backs out. So, dude, a roller coaster of doubts all the time. So yes.
Yeah, you definitely you had some last minute switches on the athletes, and you did a good job of getting them all back filler than Mike's last minute, getting the flu. But
of the 24 athletes that originally confirmed, 16 of them backed out over the duration of 10 weeks leading up to the event. Some of them for great reasons, some of them for not so great reasons. But yeah, so that's another complicated thing. And in my opinion, I thought this would be the easiest part, right? Because we had a small compensation package. I'm well acquainted with a handful of them. Some of them I would consider friends, not, some of them just, acquaintances and whatnot. But so that was another frustrating part. Like, we replaced a female athlete like 5 days out with Andrea Nisler, which worked out really well. And then of course Mike got the flu and he couldn't come out that last day. So, and Mike McDonald's a buddy of mine. I was really bummed, and so is he, that he couldn't come. That would have been a great opportunity. But, so yeah, no, a ton of doubt. It's very hard. Like, it's hard. It was worth it. It was incredible. It was an incredible experience. And now we're in the online thick of things. So it's not over for me or for the team by any means. It's over for many of the volunteers for sure, and for some of those athletes. But we've got 5 days left of the online competition, 7 days left of judging the online competition.
Yeah, and I was going to bring this up. Matilda Garnes throws up 47 ring muscle ups.
Dude, I've gotten text messages about it. I'm not a part of the online judging team. We have Hiller leading that team, and we have 2 very experienced other head judges, a part of the online review process. And then we have 9 other volunteers going through all the age groups in RX. She originally had 48, now she's got 47. So I know it's been reviewed, and I know it's been confirmed. It looks like she lost 1. But looking at it originally, I was like, I mean, Matilda's a CrossFit Games athlete. She's a
Yeah.
rogue athlete. She's highly capable, and I think she did really well at that ring muscle up kettlebell squat one at row. Like she clearly has the capacity to do well. But man, to beat everybody by almost 10, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch it just for my own entertainment. Not that I'm,
I think everybody wants to see that. I mean, that's,
yeah,
you
and
know,
maybe we
and
will. I don't know exactly what we're gonna do with all the content. Part of the Zelos Games mission is entertainment for fans. So I know we'll end up repurposing some stuff. Today, we repurposed a video of a father daughter doing the workout together, which is great. Um, very very much on brand with what CrossFit is, and I thought I'd
yeah.
share that because that was really cool. But yeah, man, we've seen some incredible performances. So it's really cool. It's cool to push the envelope a little bit to create another opportunity. I know that we're not changing the world, but if we can create like a little ripple in the ocean that is CrossFit or the ocean that is fitness globally, then that makes me happy. Not all the athletes, many of the athletes after the competition said this was the spark they needed to get inspired to begin to work on their, to go into the season with a little bit of
Hmm.
fire. All of them, not all of them, many of them PRing their snatch. Um, it's just really, really cool to be a part of it.
Yeah. I made a comment on the live stream that I thought this was great because most of these athletes, even if they've been to the games, they probably didn't get the spotlight on them too much. And because the live stream was the way it was, there was only 4 athletes in a heat. They got, exposure. And, when you have 1,000 people watching the live stream at any given time throughout, next time you see, one of these athletes out there, you're gonna connect with them more and root for them more and say, oh, I remember that time that, um, Christine snatched 225 pounds. That was awesome, right?
Yeah.
And she's been to the games. Everybody probably knows about her, but you don't see her as much as you saw, over these last 2 days, which was great.
Yeah, I agree. And I work in athlete management, and so part of my job and part of my mission in this season of my life is to create more earning opportunities for these CrossFit athletes, CrossFit Games athletes, and it is, I would say, unfortunate. Now, I do agree that the top 3 athletes in the world, the top 10 athletes in the world, they deserve credit and
Mhm.
admiration. But at the level that they get in relation to if you get 11th or 19th or 23rd or God forbid 38th, God forbid you're the 38th fittest man or female on earth and nobody knows about, like,
Or
so
sixth in semifinals. It's even less than that.
exactly. So I think it is a disservice that they don't get the recognition that they deserve if you're the 6th in semifinals or if
Yeah.
you're the 32nd at the CrossFit Games. Like, these are still the fittest people on earth putting on a show. And not anything, to the broadcast team at the games or whatever, but it's like, if we could find a way to spread the wealth, because it doesn't just show in the CrossFit Games broadcast, it shows in their paychecks as well.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you get top 3 at the games, your prize money, top 3 at Rogue, your prize money is clearly far more, and you deserve that. But like their sponsorship abilities, their followings on Instagram, which are usually related these days to their sponsorship abilities, their ability to monetize, if they're going to sell a shirt of their own or some stickers or try and get a shoe deal, like all that has to do with their recognition through media, through competitions
Mhm.
primarily. And it's unfortunate that like you've got the top 3 in the world making maybe, I'm just going to spitball, 2 million a year. That's not based on any like clear knowledge that I have. It's just spitballing for what that's worth.
Yeah.
And then if you're the 12th best in the world, now you're making 60K a year from sponsors. And like,
Right.
that's just not, like, I understand it being less. But all that is based on the brand, the recognition that they get
Hmm.
through media at, semifinals,
Well,
CrossFit
there's
Games.
only, there's only so many times you can get in front of the camera that's not yourself, right? It's not
Yeah.
your own social media following. There's only a handful of competitions, and the more you can, more events like this where they can have that exposure that's not them trying to put it out on their own platforms, but seeing it in others is definitely beneficial, I think.
Yeah. And I'd be interested, I'm not going to do this myself, but I'd be interested to see I mean, we're not the CrossFit Games, so we don't get a million views by any means. But I'd be interested to see like the increase in following that some of these athletes got from like Friday to Monday. Somebody from Morning Chalk Up should do that. They did it.
Sure.
Nowhere near, they didn't. Nobody pulled a Danielle Brandon and flicked off the crowd by any means, but it'd be cool. I mean, I gained like 250 followers, so like, if I gained that, then hopefully the athletes got 1,000, 2,000. Who knows, right?
Right.
I do know the Saban broadcast got over 50,000 views. My page has over like 12,000 views, like my Zelos Games YouTube channel. So, I hope it served its purpose in creating more earning potential for athletes and entertainment for fans, because that's the mission of the Zelos Games.
Yeah. Did you get any feedback from the athletes directly after they finished up?
All positive. But I know that in the high of your snatch PR or like finishing a workout, people rarely have negative feedback, just because you're just raging with serotonin and endorphins. So I plan on sort of letting that settle and putting together a survey and sending that survey out to the athletes. I did the same thing last year. I got on the phone with usually like most of the top 10 people from last year, and just got their feedback on their experience. It was all online last year, but so I plan on doing the same thing, especially with the live athletes, with the vendors, with the staff and volunteers, because God willing, we get to repeat this again next year, and I want it to be better. I want it to be twice as good, 3 times as good, right? Because if the feedback is accurate that I got this year, we did a really good job. And if we can do better next year, then it's like, if we can continue to create an example of how to run an event. And again, I'm not trying to like stroke my own ego, and I also know that we only had 12 men and 12 women. So all those things come into play. But we did some unique things that have never been done, and they worked out well. And then, so I say all that to say, I'm going to be doing a bunch of reviews with athletes and everybody.
We got our own investigator, Travis, over here with 15,000 views on event 1, over 10,000 on every single one of them.
Yeah, so 47,000 collective views on Savan's page, and then mine's got somewhere from 12 plus, which is crazy good. I know that's a little bit higher than the average for Savan's shows in general, and for them to be like 3-hour episodes, that also speaks volumes, because I'm sure as a media creator that if you have a video that's 10 seconds long, it's far easier to get 10,000 views than if you have a video that's 3 hours long.
Right. Yeah.
So we did a cool thing, and hopefully it, my intention is that people are inspired, and it, something cool comes of it, right? Because the last thing I want is like in 3 weeks from now, because, I'm on this podcast because I just had an event and I got 200 followers because I hosted an event, but in like 2 weeks, I'm going to be like, I'm flavor of the week, right? Zelos Games is flavor of the week. I know that. You have Master Legends in December. You have Wadapalooza in January. I just hope that doesn't I don't care about me being flavor of next week, but hopefully the Zelos Games is like people take things from it and use it. And, hopefully Brian gets more opportunities to commentate on big events. Hopefully Savan gets an opportunity to broadcast events. That's my hope. I don't know if Hiller wants to do more, but hopefully if that's what he wants, hopefully he gets to be in the conversation when it comes to judging. That would be really, really cool. And that would make me feel fulfilled.
Yeah. Do you think your decision to have Hiller as head judge affected his reputation in the community? Obviously, he's been divisive. I would agree with that.
This process has been really interesting for me and Andrew. And I think especially for Andrew, because, he has a reputation for being the guy making videos about other people's videos and other competitions judging. But we all know he's never done it himself. We do know he's been a semifinal athlete. He's been behind the scenes in those ways. But he's never actually judged. And so going through that experience, it's a hard job. I would think that he would agree in that. I don't think he realized how hard of a job it was going to be, getting on weekly calls. He's in the thick of things right now with online judging. I mean, spending hours watching videos, not for fun anymore, but for a job, right? And like, and how did it affect his reputation? I think it probably helped. That wasn't really my intention. I'm not like his saving grace or anything, but like, he got to spend time live. And, normally when you only know people from a screen, it's easy to love them or hate them or be indifferent. But when you spend time with them in person, you get to actually choose, do I like this person or do I dislike this person? Because now we have a real interaction. And that, I could go off on a tangent about how the world is somewhat more like that. But these days. But Andrew is I don't think he's ill-intentioned. I think he has a good message. I just think that a lot of people may not love his delivery. But
Right.
live, the delivery was different. It's more eloquent. It's less polarizing, right? Because he's not pointing at one person. We're speaking in general to an audience of athletes prior to them competing. And then when they make a mistake, we can clearly outline why they had a no rep. So it's a lot easier for him to be strict and judgmental, right? Because we're judging people,
Right.
On that end. And so I think if anything, people got to spend time with him. They got to learn a little bit about what goes on in his mind. And so, I mean, I know some people were rolling their eyes at the briefing, and like I told him, like that could be anything. Bailey Rail was rolling her eyes when Tia was doing her speech, and that was just because Dee was making jokes behind her. You know what I mean? So anything
Right.
could be happening. But all that to say, I think it hopefully helped because people can see kind of some of his heart behind his videos. But at the same time, I think he gets to learn the heart behind judging and the heart behind, like competing, even though he has competed, because he's had to go through the ringer as an online and a live judge now, head judge too. He's gotten to see some of his team, his judges make judging errors, and he's had to let them go because he understands in the moment why that would happen. And so I don't know what it'll come of this, but it's been a really great experience for us all. And hopefully, again, like I said, the community is more accepting. I mean, I know a lot of people in the community love him. He gets a ton of views. And for those that maybe hate him, hopefully that helps. For the athletes that were indifferent, hopefully they have a positive. I don't know what his intentions were, but I think it should change a little bit.
I mean, I think, I think you get that online persona and you get the judgments early. But I can tell that he loves CrossFit and he wants it to get better. And this was an example for him to be able to get out there and do it in person and be the one that actually shows that, yes, I do care. And I'm going to, not going to just sit back and watch and complain. I'm going to try to fix it.
Exactly. Yeah. And working with him, it wasn't like there was not one moment in time where he was like, let's no rep everybody. You know what I mean? Like it was like very clear. We were both on the same page about like, we want to advance the quality of movement where needed, because there are some people that move incredible and they don't ever need to be questioned. And there are just some judgment calls that are questionable as well. But then there's like the people in the middle that are trying to get away with not fully, extending their elbows or flexing their shoulders at the top of a thruster. They're trying to do super fast wall balls and they're not getting to full depth. And it's like the sport, like people can only get better in like one of three ways. They can get faster, they can get stronger. I guess 4, they can get more skilled, or they can increase the quality of movement. And so at some point, like people are only going to squat so much. They're only going to run so fast. They're only going to, I don't know, do so many triple cross, whatever. But like if we can elevate the quality of movement, then that is a new way to advance the sport. And so I echo the sentiment there, and I like empathize with his message there. Plus, like for people trying to cheat the sport and win the open with like, it's just like, why, man? Like, a lot of us love this sport and believe in the professionalization of CrossFit. And so this is just part of what needs to be done. So that's somebody asked why I brought him on. That was one of the big reasons, because I know how passionate he is about the quality of movement.
Who came up with the appeal kind of process and how that was the framework behind that?
I honestly don't know who to credit for that. I've seen a judging document that had that was sent to me some time ago, that had this idea for like the appeal or the challenge. And then in our conversations, it was brought up, maybe by Andrew, but I don't know if that's because he saw that document as well or if he
Mhm.
thought of it. So I'm not really sure who to credit for that, and I don't want to inappropriately credit anybody. But it wasn't me. That's for sure. Um, but now I see that CrossFit HQ announced they're going to do an appeal.
Yep.
I just want to be clear, we're not taking credit for that. So the turnaround is far too quick for us to take credit on that. Like I doubt CrossFit HQ changed their manual in a day. Um, but what's really cool is that we got to beta test it,
Mhm.
and so they can use that. There was two instances of a challenge, both in which worked out for the athlete. I don't foresee it always working out for the athlete, and that's not
Right.
why we created the challenge. Um, but so both very interesting instances too. We kind of got lucky, I'm gonna be honest, because they weren't like mid workout no reps that were challenged. They were, which I kind of wish somebody would have like challenged a wall ball no rep or something like
Mhm.
that. Um, they were Tola Moraquino at the end of an interval on a ring muscle up. Like it was 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And
Yeah.
one of the judges no repped him because it looked like the time had expired prior to him getting to full extension at the top of ring muscle up. Very good call. And this is why I
Mhm.
think the challenge is so important because if you watch that video back in regular speed, you're like, clearly a no rep. So you're like, oh, our judge is on point. He's doing his job. He's great.
Mhm.
But if you slow that down, and that's what we got to do, and if you screenshot where Tola gets to full extension, well, not like that for sure, but um, this clock still shows 3 minutes, not 3:01. So he's still within that time window at
Mhm.
full extension, but it's a millisecond, just like in the NFL or something. And so he got that point back. He got that ring muscle up back. But we wouldn't have known that if we didn't get to take advantage of the challenge. And it took us 4 minutes. We did it in
Yeah.
between the transition. So obviously there has to be a process to it. Um, and then Alex again challenged her handstand walk at the very end of her workout. She's falling apart on a last 25-foot handstand walk. It's muscular at this point. Triceps are flexing, shoulders are fatigued. And I prepped our judges to look for this. She hopped into the finish line like you see at like a moment of desperation
Yeah.
in the handstand walk finish. Um, and obviously the rule is, and this is a really interesting thing to chat about. Uh, the rule is that your palms and your fingers have to cross the line before your toes touch the ground. And so in the millisecond, her palms and her fingers pass the line before her toes touch the ground. And so we could see that in the replay. And oddly enough, her elbow touched the ground, but there are no rules about that. And
Hmm.
so it begs the question, okay, should we say palms and fingers touch the ground beyond the line before any other extremity makes contact with the floor? And that's like, oh, do we make a new rule? Should we tell CrossFit HQ about this? Like, so
Yeah.
it's not borderline. It's
Right.
clear,
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne. It's clear because we copy pasted the standards from CrossFit on the handstand walk, and it clearly says palms and fingertips must go beyond the line before your feet touch the ground. It does not say forearm or elbow. It does not say other extremities, right? And one of the other athletes was
Mhm.
frustrated about that, and I said, hey, we can't change the rule. Is it questionable that an elbow touches the ground? Sure, but it's never been a rule. So do we
Right.
make that a new rule, or do we say we don't care about other extremities? It's just feet. So
Mhm.
yeah. So anyways, it was a
Yeah.
really interesting thing, and it's something for us to consider in the future. Does the elbow matter? Do we let
Yeah.
someone come down to an elbow and come back up and finish their handstand walk? I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't
That,
know.
that that goes back to the very beginning of this conversation of the unknown and unknowable. Everything's always changing, and that was one of my, I don't know if it's concern is the right word, but thoughts when you started coming out with here are the penalties, right? I think that was it's a good thought and shows, if nothing else, you're thinking through where are the points where an athlete may try to cut a corner or the places where you need to look for if you're judging, but you're never going to know everything, right? And this
Right.
is a perfect example of that. Is you're always going to have to, you know, there's always going to be a gray area in a lot of this stuff because nothing is black and white when it comes
Right.
to this because there's always something that happens different.
Um, All elbows matter. You're right, Travis. Hey, Brian, I got to jump on a review call with Savon and Matt. I don't think it's live or anything, but we're reviewing the
Yeah, man.
weekend. So I got to jump off. Is that
There
okay?
you go. Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming, and congrats on putting off a great event. And you have a few more days till this whole thing is wrapped up online. But
Thank you, brother.
good deal, man. Have a great one.